Hi, everyone. It's Taylor, and I am here with Erika Ashley today. I am so excited to have her on. Erika and I have worked together in many ways over the past, months or maybe even year. So I'm just excited to feature her. She has a really awesome story. So hi, Erika. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Of course. So I guess where we can start is just introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and what you do now.
Sure. So I'm Erika Ashley. I run two ventures. One is my kind of personal coaching and strategy business, it's Erika Ashley. And then I'm also starting up a new venture called Bitches Who Roar, which basically is a foundation to help women of all ages, but especially younger women who feel really disempowered and shut down by being called like a bitch or being silenced in their voice to let their inner bitch out. Because usually women are told that you're being a bitch if you're being too loud or you're standing up for yourself, which is not being a bitch, it's just being a human being. But we get so used to being in our shells that it's just a really disempowering experience, and I want to stop that, and I want to let women speak their truth, whatever that might be. In my coaching business, I help specifically women who are in their 20s who want to start a movement and who really want to start something bigger, so like Bitches Who Roar or their version of whatever that is, to shift out of the mindset of being a business owner and to reshift how they're positioning themselves and their business to be able to go after this kind of bigger goal that they have and this bigger kind of vision, because something that a lot of women do, I think, especially women in their 20s, is when I hit 5-figure months, or when I hit that 6-figure year, or when I do this, then I'll do that. But if you actually reverse it and you start with the bigger impact, money is just kind of the natural result because things have to shift for you to be able to make it happen. So that's what I do in a nutshell.
I love it. I love hearing about this new venture. My first time hearing about it, I kind of snuck it out of you. So I love it. So why don't you tell us, I know that you've really had quite the journey. You've done all sorts of things. So why don't we rewind a little bit and tell us, when did you get started as an entrepreneur? What do you think was, what do you consider your first time being an entrepreneur? You're you know what I mean? Breaking through into this world,
Yeah. So my first entrepreneurial venture was at the age of 14, actually. So I started designing MySpace layouts. I didn't know anything about pricing or fair market share at that point. So I was charging $50 for customized MySpace layouts. The popular girls who didn't want to hang out with me in school, but who wanted my nerdiness, would pay me $50 on Monday. And then by Friday, they would have a customized MySpace layout that was all their own. So I used to work Monday to Friday and lunch hours at the library in order to get it done, because my parents at that time, believe it or not, it was still a choice between using the phone or the internet. We still had a dial-up line at that point, and they were not too keen on their children using the internet. So I had to all at school. So like many people, I started from a place of, I wonder how my parents are going to react to this. But then I had several years where I was a beauty and fashion blogger part-time. So I saw it as a side hustle for pretty much the time that I would say I was about 20 to 25. And then my actual real immersion therapy into the online world started when I was 25. So I got really ill. Before that, I was helping to manage a not-for-profit. I was also a PhD student, and so I was just planning to become an art history professor, and that's where I thought that my life was going to go. But I actually got too sick to work, and I had some mobility issues that made it hard for me to leave my apartment. So I had to quit my job, and I had no choice but to find a way to make the internet work for me and to make it monetizable. Yeah. So I started my first business, which was a VA business, from that place of really needing to make money and having no option. I was going to be homeless if I didn't. So I was able to book my client roster out in 10 days, and then having that roster of clients and having that steady income allowed me to transition into coaching, which was a much riskier venture because I didn't really know, much about the coaching side of business. I really had been kind of new to the world. I had been in it, less than 6 months, digital entrepreneurship. So I didn't know how it was going to go, but I actually booked myself out in 21 days and made $30K cash in April of 2016. So we're pretty much coming up on a year now of when I started my coaching business, or a couple of days shy.
It's so funny too how it's kind of like you just started a year ago, but at the same time, it's like you started much longer ago than that. And I think the MySpace thing is hilarious too, because like I didn't sell MySpace layouts, but like I secretly kind of wanted to. Like I was like, if only I could sell these, because like I just did that for fun. And I also played this really childish game called Horseland, like in elementary school and middle school, where you could also design layouts, and you could like, you had horses, but they were literally just photos of horses, and then you like name it. I was like, if I could design these pictures of horses and you wouldn't have to get them off Google, like.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so the early days, I was a very, very young me, was doing what very, very young you wanted to be doing, monetizing. I was just like a couple of years ahead of you on the monetization game.
I love it. Well, at least you were able to kind of figure that out pretty quickly. So getting, like, I don't know when this might have happened for you, if it did at all, but I'm curious to know, like, when you first got started as like the VA coaching side of your business, which is kind of when you took the online business thing like big, and you had pretty big results. Like, what kind of obstacles or struggles or setbacks did you come across? I know probably one of those was just your health and dealing with that in general, but.
Yeah, so I definitely came across a couple of different things. So the first thing was, now it's really common. I started as a mindset coach, so now mindset coaches are kind of like a dime a dozen. There's a ton of people who focus on mindset. I still focus on mindset with all of my clients, because you don't have a good mindset, it's really difficult to get your business off the ground, let alone scale it, let alone really dream very, very big, which is what my clients do. At the time, there was really only like one or two people who were well known within the space for doing it. And I was coming at it from a very different approach. So I had a lot of mindset issues myself that I actually had to like hire a coach for, because I was so terrified and so petrified. I actually had as well some kind of hurdles when it came to video. So I had never really done video work before. I had thought about starting a YouTube channel for years, but I had never actually done it. This was the time when Periscope was really, really big in the entrepreneurial community. There was no Facebook Live. Like, Facebook Live kind of just came in and cannibalized it. But I had never been on live video, so I was really, really scared about that, actually, of trolls or people being like, you don't know what you're talking about, and it's live. So it's not like you can block someone like you can on YouTube, or like delete their comment and no one will see it. Like, it would show up in a broadcast. So I was really, really terrified of that. And then I think as well, I really struggled with feelings of insecurity, and just feeling like, even when I was a VA and I'd had like tons of experience in my corporate jobs, various corporate jobs, doing what I was doing, and, you know, doing it in an informal way, I never had any training. So I think I was just very new, and having to realize that people in the online space don't care about pieces of paper that you get from a university or college or any kind of certifying body the way that they do in, you know, the external world outside of business. People in business care about what you can bring to the table, not, you know, what piece of paper is hanging on the wall behind you.
Totally. And I think that's a big thing that will hold a lot of people back. Like, for me, deciding to become a coach, I thought about that for a long time, but it was like, maybe if I do this for like another 5 years, like VA work, then I'm a coach, you know, like if I just suffer through this. And like, that's kind of what we're taught, like, that it takes, is to climb your way up the ladder and like go really slow. And like, I even did that with increasing my pricing too, where it was like, okay, like, in 6 months, I'll increase my hourly rate by $5. Like, it just seemed like that's how it had to be. So what advice, or what's your take on kind of like, I guess, shifting your mindset, or however you want to word it, of like going from this is what you're taught to do to be successful and kind of going in slow motion to having the results that you had, which you can kind of tell us more about if you'd like. Because you had really fast results. I think that's like when I'm assuming it's kind of like when you decide like, I'm going to make this work and like, I'm going to get fast results.
Yeah.
Like, how did that happen? What advice do you have for somebody who's kind of taking it slow? Like, take it away from there.
Yeah. So I think that the biggest shift that I went through from being so ingrained in corporate and especially being at the weird stage of having just graduated from a master's degree and being a PhD student, like, you were kind of nothing and nobody until you graduate with that PhD. So I had been in school at that point for it was almost 7 years at that point in higher education. And I still didn't really have a name for myself. I was just kind of starting out and building a name. And so that doesn't exist in the online space. Like in the online space, you're kind of like, hi, I'm showing up, like this is who I am. And there's no barrier to entry the same way that there is in a normal job where you have to kind of move up the ladder. You're really the one who's in charge of your own success. So you can dream as small or as big as you want. And the amount of money, the amount of following, everything that you have right now is really a reflection of kind of how you're choosing to set up your own reality. So you need to make that shift. I didn't really have a choice. It was like, I gotta succeed or I'm gonna be homeless, which is not a motivator that I recommend to anybody, but that was just my reality. And when it came to transitioning into coaching, I was really nervous about that. And my goal was like, I just wanted one client. So I signed my first client on April 9th, 2016 of coaching. And then it was just like one after the other, after the other, after the other. Like dominoes, they just all started to fall. And something that really propelled my business was two things that month. One, live streaming, and two, testimonials. So I started the month, the first 8 days, putting out a call for free calls. And so I was getting all of these testimonials and nobody knew who I was or really cared at the beginning of April 1st. But then so many people were posting testimonials for me, and I made sure that they continued the entire month, or I would like recycle testimonials that people had given me over the course of the month and posted them in groups that everybody was like, damn, like why is everyone talking about this girl? Like suddenly I went from nobody knowing who I was to having a lot of visibility within the community quickly. So if you're trying to break in and you need to up that confidence level, because that's partly what free calls is about for me too, I would definitely recommend doing those free calls, getting a testimonial, screenshotting that testimonial, and using that as proof of like what you can do, as well as like a good confidence booster. Because if you can do it once, twice, 3 times, you can do it infinity times. And as long as the person is right and a good fit, you can help them.
Definitely. And I'm curious to hear this too. It's kind of a little bit more random, but one thing I know is that you've shifted into kind of offering they're all been pretty related, but different types of services, different types of niches, whatever we want to call it. Like, what about somebody who is thinking about starting their business, or maybe they're already doing something, but they want to do something different? And their issue isn't, because some people struggle with like, I'm not good at anything. What can I sell? But I feel like some people struggle with, I'm good at a lot of things, or like there's a lot of stuff maybe I could turn into a business. Where do I start? I think a question a lot of people have is like, what's the right move?
So what I like to do is always start with a very big question of like, what is it that I could see myself doing into my 60s, 70s, 80s? Like, what's the one thing that I would want to do that I would never want to retire from, that like I'll probably be on stage somewhere, have a heart attack and die, is probably how I'm going to go. That's really for me what has always been kind of the guiding mission and guiding question. So I've always been about empowering women. It's just the way that I've gone about it is in kind of, differing ways depending on what I felt most called to do in my business at that time. So normally something will come through as a theme. So for me, empowering women was a really, really big one. And I always worked on that in my business. So I've never had a male client. Who knows what the future holds, but probably won't have a male client at any point in the future. So that was a really, really big one. And then when it came to what I can do, I actually realized that not worrying so much about like what I could do or how I was going to help people, so much as focusing on like my goal is to help people, was actually way more helpful. So I kind of came up with, after being in a slump in my business, I came up with this kind of like hashtag that came into my head after an activity that I did with one of my coaches, which was like, fuck the niche, where I decided that I wanted to see how much money I could make by just responding to any like post or call for help that I knew that I could help someone with. So I ended up doing like VA work, Facebook ads, coaching work, all different kinds of work. And I brought in like $3,500 cash, a little bit over that. And then proceeded the next week to sign my first 5-figure client. So that's really helped me to keep momentum going. It's just being like, can I help you? Do I know I can help you? Yes. Okay, great. what are the areas that you need help with, and helping people that way. So by going with the message as opposed to going with like, I'm, I don't know, a messaging coach who helps people do yada, 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 by leading with what I'm passionate about and talking about myself and the kind of impact that I want to have in the world, it's also left me more open to be able to explore revenue generating opportunities.
I love that. Like, so many people struggle with selling, and I think I struggled with selling. I just blamed it that I was young and shy. But like, if you just think about it as helping, yeah, because that's how I got started too. It's just like, just going to go in these groups and see what people want and what they need. And I'm going to offer it if I know I've done it before, or if I can figure it out. And I think that's really a great way to look at it. It's just like helping people.
Yeah, exactly. And definitely something that helped me in the early stage of my business was like mastering discovery calls. So I heard like 12 no's in a row before I got my first client, which is still, from what I understand, looking at, other coaches' Facebook ads, was a very, very like low number. I've seen people say 50, 60, 70 no's in a row. I've even seen as high as 87 one-time no's in a row. So you really need to master how to have a discovery call. And I think people put so much weight on a discovery call and they get so nervous and they get so amped up. But really, it's a conversation about doing like two things. One, you want to get people to stop lying to themselves about what situation they're in, especially if you're in something that's more metaphysical or mindset or even business, coaching, even if you're a designer. You need to get people to that moment of truth where they're able to acknowledge, like, one, what needs to shift, how it's holding them back. And then two, the second part of the conversation is just like really being a human with them and being like, look, here's how I think I can help you. This is what, you can either come up with a package on the fly if they don't need 90 days for something, or they don't need 4 months, and that's your custom package, or you can give them your custom package. And then it's really up to them to decide if you're the right person for them or not. So many people think that they have to close people on the first call, or if they hear no now, that person's never going to come back to them. And you're actually a perfect example, because we spoke on the phone several months ago, and at that time you were not a yes, but then a couple of months later, it was right for you. And that's fine. Just because someone's a no now doesn't mean they're not a no in infinity. But if you push them, or if you are too salesy, if you really come on too strong, then it's really difficult to kind of rewind that relationship and take it back to a place where they would feel like they could trust you and want to hire you.
Yeah. And I think that also says something about, I don't know if this is confidence or just not letting things affect you, because sometimes like you could have taken that as like, oh, Taylor must not like me, or like, something like that, where you feel like it's all you, but it wasn't, and I know that I've had a lot of people, I talk about this all the time, come back like up to, now over a year later, and sometimes quickly, sometimes the next week, the next month, 6 months, whatever. But there's been times where I'm like, oh my gosh, like that was so awkward. They must hate me. They must totally not be into what I'm offering. But that's hardly ever the case. Some people are just not a good fit. That doesn't mean anything about you, but sometimes it's just not exactly right now. Like I had told you that I had followed you, and you mentioned that comment one time privately to me about me like commenting on your Periscopes when you watch it back. Like I have been following you for a long time, like, and watching all of this and like always just kind of feeling pulled to you for one way or another. And it's just don't let that stuff get to you. I think that's a huge thing.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things too that people don't realize, especially in the early phases of their business, is like, you don't know everyone who's going to be watching and everyone who's going to be following you. So especially if you are marketing in Facebook groups, or even if you have an email list, not everyone's going to open every single one of your emails. Not everyone's going to like every single post or comment on everything that you do, but it doesn't mean that they're not watching, paying attention, liking your stuff. It just means where they are mindset wise, or, where they are in their current reality, they made a choice not to like or comment or open your email. But it has nothing to do with you. Whether people engage with you or not, it doesn't mean that no one's watching. People are seeing your posts. People are always discerning who they want to work with. And especially if you tend to attract more introvert entrepreneurs, they may not be out there, in these Facebook streets, like commenting, liking everybody's posts because they are naturally, they tend to be more shy and quiet. And so I've had a lot of clients that I literally had no idea were following me because they don't comment, they don't like posts, but then here they are, and they're these amazing women coming out, wanting to make things happen, wanting to make big things happen. And so you shouldn't get discouraged if you're not seeing a lot of engagement, but do realize that if the problem is persisting, 3-6 months, hopefully not a year down the road, that there's clearly a problem that you may want to consider investing in some help so that you can succeed quicker. Because I think something that's really helped both of us, regardless of where we've been in our business, is that we've been quick investors. And whenever we have a problem, we do invest to seek help, and usually with excellent results.
Definitely. And another question that I want to ask you, because one, you've helped me with this personally, and I think that you're similar to me as kind of being like independent woman, like not relying, and this is, this might not relate to some people, but for the ladies that really resonate with me on this, I'm just going to say it. Like the women who they're not married, or maybe they are, but they're very independent. Like they're not depending on a man or a woman or anybody or their parent. Like they're independent. They don't have kids. They don't I always felt like it was so, and maybe it's just like this bubble I got myself in, but it was like the only thing that really could motivate me in the beginning, I thought, was just like making a ton of money, because it's like I just saw all these people, like I wasn't a mom. I didn't want to do it for my children. Like I didn't even have children. I didn't have this family or this big fancy house I wanted to buy. And to be honest, like even though I'm totally up for travel, like I didn't feel called to live like that whole like travel nomad kind of life. Oh my gosh, of course it's me that has the phone ringing. Okay. But I was seeing everyone else's like their why and their purpose, and like I was like, I guess I just don't have one right now. Like I'm only 20 or 21. Maybe I just don't have a purpose right now. Maybe I just need to make money and save it and buy things that I like. But that only got me so far. Like it worked for a little while. But even though I feel like now looking back, it's like, Taylor, the purpose was right in front of your face. But like I still felt like I didn't have one. So like I don't really have a question, but what do you think for the people who are really in that situation?
Well, first of all, I don't think that there's anything like wrong with making money or being motivated by money. So something that I say, like even in my free training, I say it. I work with women who love money and who want to make a lot of money. But the difference is that I think that you can make money, but I always say that money made without purpose isn't really money. It just ends up being a huge headache, because that's when you start to have, if you're just going after those goals without knowing why you want to use the money or why you want to save the money or something like that, it can be really, really burdensome in the end, because that's when you tend to attract clients who are not ideal clients, or who tend to be more problematic, or, you'll attract money, but then it'll go back. So I had a moment in time where I didn't really know what I wanted to use the money for. Like my basic needs were met. I wasn't really planning to travel. Like I was recovering from surgery, thought I was going back to my PhD. I did. I ended up quitting because I was just so miserable. But I had this period of time where I was kind of in transition, and I was getting clients because, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get clients. And the client ended up like quitting after 3 sessions. And then she ended up charging me back on the last possible day that she could charge back with the credit card company. So I thought that we were, clear and fine. And she charged me back, like I lost the dispute. So it literally, my words ended up manifesting themselves where I never had a clear purpose for that money. And it ended up just going right back out, and in kind of like the worst way possible of a chargeback, because that really messes your mindset, and it really just kind of messes up how you feel about money for a little while if you let it. And so I think that it's totally fine to be driven by money, but you at least have to have something, and you don't have to have some grand purpose. Like I don't believe that everyone's meant to be like the next Oprah, or not everyone's going to, eradicate poverty, or not everyone's going to start a woman empowerment movement. But even if you can find within your group a purpose for, for that group, or if you can find some concrete way that you want to help people, just always think about kind of what is the reason why I'm doing. So like, why is it important if I'm a health coach? Why is it important for me to help women, lose that bit of tummy fat if that's what you specialize in? Or if you're a confidence coach, well, why is it important to me personally that my clients become more confident? Like, a lot of people focus on their clients, or they focus on like money, which is an end result of getting clients, but they don't figure out why it matters to them. And as long as you know why it matters to you and why the work that you're doing is important at the end of the day, I think that you're fine. So even if you don't have some grand purpose, like for you at the beginning, you were really driven by family, because this is something that you mentioned in the webinar one time, that you were driven by, showing your younger siblings that business didn't have to be a struggle, that you could make a lot of money and you didn't have to be like super old to do it. You could be really young and have all the things that you wanted. Like, that's a perfectly fine purpose too, of just being like, I want to be an inspiration, and I have a very like tiny subset of people that I want to be an inspiration for. That's totally fine, but it's okay too if you look 3 months down the line and you feel like that's not okay, or you feel like something's missing. It's okay to acknowledge that something is missing and like go in search of what that is.
Yeah, definitely. Perfect. I love that. Okay, last question. I want to ask you about, because you invested a lot of time and obviously probably money too into your education. And I've had this come up where some young women that I've talked to have put off starting their business because they didn't want to waste their degree, or they thought they had to finish it. I've even had some clients who have actually dropped out as well of finishing their degree, which is totally a personal choice, of course, but it's pretty cool. That's not like, for me, I didn't go to school as long as you, but I got my bachelor's degree in journalism, and like, I had my heart set on that. Like, I was so proud of myself too for like figuring out what I wanted to do. And like, I got the perfect internship and I was all set to go. And then just literally weeks before I graduated, I was like, I'm not going to do this. And I graduated, but then I was like, I'm just going to stay in my business. And like, I don't really ever see myself doing this. And I really 100% don't feel like I wasted my degree or wasted my time. I feel like I needed those 4 years for other things, but I needed them. Like, I need that little gap. But I'm curious on your take, whether it's just personally how, your journey panned out with that and how you feel about it, but also like for somebody who's in that situation of like, has invested a lot in it and is realizing like, and I know that you're using yours too, so you can speak, that's still important to you, but yeah, I want to hear a little bit on your take on that for somebody who's invested a lot in their education.
Sure. So I definitely think that what I learned in my actual classes was really interesting, but they weren't the most helpful experiences for me in my actual business right now. What was more helpful for me was all of the like extracurriculars or jobs that I got as a result that really taught me, because I was 23 years old and managing a multi-six-figure not-for-profit, and I was sitting on the board and managing on the financial committee of a 7-figure not-for-profit at that time. And those were opportunities that I had because of my college education and because of the degree that I was getting, because they were arts-based, not-for-profit. And then I worked in a museum for a little while doing some management stuff there. And then I worked in like government relations and stuff like that as I was kind of moving into my PhD, and then I had to quit that job. So I think for me, I didn't really end up using my degree very much in my business itself, but it's coming back around now, because my thing is always, if you can help people, help them in whatever way that you can. So future and upcoming project for me at some point is I'm going to teach artists how they can make money on the internet, because a really kind of broken system that artists are still in is relying a lot upon federal funding, which obviously in the US right now we can see is like here today, gone tomorrow, and relying on other people for your income is never a great idea. Or they get signed by a gallery and the gallery takes 50% of every single sale. So artists are much better selling on the internet, really learning how to be business people, but you learn how to make art in art school. You learn nothing about business. And so that's a project that I know I want to do, which I had to go to art school in order to learn that. And I had to go through that path in order to use it for this future business, because I needed to interact with artists, see artists, talk to artists, realize what their struggles were. But nothing is ever wasted. I still use things from psychology class from when I was a nursing school student and dropped out. I still use things that I learned in my adult psych class in my coaching business today. Like, I still use things moving forward. You'll be surprised of how much will actually come back around and how useful it'll be. Even if it's like that, that English class that you had to take because it was the only thing that fit into your schedule, but you really learned how to write in that class. Or even if it was just doing essays and you learned how to write better. Or maybe that stupid group project that you thought was never going to do anything taught you a lot about collaborating under difficult circumstances. So you know what to avoid when getting into a business partnership with someone or getting into a collaborative venture. Everything that you do always leads and always builds. So it may not be direct, but I wouldn't worry if you're concerned about like ditching your degree or if you're worried about that, because everything comes full circle. So you'll always find a way. And sometimes you're just meant to go through a degree to help inspire someone else that was around you or went to school with you to be able to start their own business. So someone recently reached out to me and was like, hey, what you've been saying has really been resonating with me a lot. I know I'm not meant to work a 9 to 5. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. Can you sit down and have coffee with me so that I can learn more about what you do? So there's always a way that you'll be inspiring people. And even just that is, for me, worth what I put into my education, knowing that I'm helping one other person who is in my sphere, in my circle, to be able to leave that situation and to be able to do something different and to be able to follow her own passion, I think is really, really inspiring. And we are kind of the first generation to face this dichotomy between college, non-college. And I think as things shift more and more, it's going to become the norm and not the exception, that more and more women especially are starting their own creative businesses and are going after what they want without worrying about like the pay gap or, the gender wage gap, because they're not going to be in corporate jobs. They're going to be working for themselves, where they're the ones totally in control of their own income. So don't worry about it. You're going to be fine. Even if your parents tell you that you're making a mistake, if you know that this is what's right for you, it's what's right for you. I think pretty much every set of parents of a 20-something that I've spoken to, they haven't been happy. My parents weren't happy, and I was 25 when I started my business, and then 27 when I quit. So my parents were not happy either, but now they see that I'm thriving, I'm succeeding, I have so much more time to dedicate to my business. So don't worry, it's all going to work itself out.
Yeah, for sure. Like, even my dad, he's been a business owner my whole life, and not that he wasn't happy, but he was highly concerned. And even well after I was making 5-figure months in my business, he was like asking me like, are you okay? And I've never borrowed money from my dad, but he's like, are you okay with money? Like, are you paying your bills? Do you need anything? Like, once he kind of saw that, like, okay, I was doing this, he's like, okay, but are you like okay doing it? Like, do you have money? It's kind of interesting. They just sometimes they won't get it, and that's okay.
Yeah, and I think too, especially if you have parents who are business owners, like my parents actually owned a business and their business didn't work out, and they've been kind of like serial entrepreneurs their whole lives, doing like one thing or another, whether it was like MLM or now they have their own business again. Like, they're not working on the internet, so it's difficult for them to understand that people on the internet who really haven't met you would want to pay you for something and would want to pay you like good money that actually really values your skills and your expertise for that money, especially if you are in your 20s. It's difficult for them to understand, especially if you're eclipsing their income. I think it just kind of weirds them out and freaks them out, because that's not really supposed to happen. Your parents are always supposed to make more money than you because they're supposed to be further ahead in life than you. And so even if you have parents who are entrepreneurs, like, don't feel like you have to be shackled by their story or that you can't eclipse them or do better than them, because remember, it's all about helping again. So if your parents have debts or if they have bills and you feel called to help them, like, you doing better in your business is a way that you can actually help them if you feel called to do that. So really, there's no cap, there's no limit. Like, for me, I could never go back to a 9 to 5. Again, like, having been out of it for so long and knowing what's possible here, it would feel like a defeat to go into a 9 to 5. And so if you have that feeling of like, when you get up in the morning, when you have that feeling constantly, whether you're in a 9 to 5 now or just in college and thinking about going to the 9 to 5, is because you're not meant to be there. Because there are lots of people who get up and kind of don't feel like going to work. they go, they do their day, they come home, and they're fine. If you genuinely hate the thought of even going, it's because you're probably not meant to be there, and you're probably meant to be doing something else. And we live in the time where we have the most opportunities ever. So it's almost like you don't want to squander that. You want to go after what you want, because the internet has provided like endless opportunities for you to do that.
Totally. And I think that was the perfect ending point. That was really good advice. I love it. So once I get this video up and out into the internet world, I'm going to link to your website, your Instagram, and whatever other links that you gave us to a group or opt-in, whatever you might have given to us. But if you do just want to share really quickly before we hop off, remind us, what you do and where we can find you if we need your help, that would be awesome.
Sure. So I help 20-something women who know that they want to do something really big in the world to figure out what that really big something might be, and then help them carve out a plan to make it happen. So I tend to work with women who've kind of been in business for a little while already, but are feeling unfulfilled by their business, or they feel like they're not getting to that like bigger something that they've wanted to get to because they're kind of stuck in the everyday monotony of their business. So you can definitely reach me at my website. It's erikaashley.com, or on social media. I'm the same handle literally everywhere at It's Erika Ashley. So I'm on everything. You can reach out to me anywhere, and I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you.
Awesome. Super easy.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. This was awesome. I really appreciate your time and you being here and answering all these questions.
Absolutely. So happy to have been here. Thanks.
Awesome.